You finish reading a message, and without even thinking about it, your thumbs top out two letters, okay. Or maybe you say it out loud. Someone asks if you're ready, and you answer before they've even finished the question, okay. It might be the single word you use the most and notice the least. You've probably said it a dozen times already today, and not once did you stop to ask what it actually is. But have you ever wondered, what does OK even stand for? Where did two random letters come from, and how did they, of all the words on Earth, become the one the entire planet agreed on? The real answer is dumber, older, and far stranger than you'd ever guess, and it begins with a joke in a newspaper almost 200 years ago. To understand how you ended up typing a 19th century gag a dozen times a day, we have to leave your phone behind and step into a newspaper office in Boston in the spring of 1839. Picture a room full of young, educated men who think they're very clever, because at that moment, in that city, there was a fad going around. The joke was to take a common phrase, misspell it badly on purpose, and then shrink it down to its initials, like a secret handshake you tossed around with friends. No-go became no-go, which became KG. All right became all right, which became OW. The whole point was that you were smart enough to spell it correctly and chose not to. Slang has always been a kind of club, and the password is being in on the joke. Now, a word this universal, you'd assume, must come from somewhere serious, a Latin root, a legal term, a piece of military code, something dignified. It came from a typo, on purpose. On the morning of March 23, 1839, a Boston Morning Post editor named Charles Gordon Green was needling a rival newspaper, and to land the bit, he dropped in those two letters, and in case anyone missed it, helpfully translated them right there in print. Okay, he wrote, all correct. Except it wasn't spelled all correct at all. It stood for all correct. The punchline was the misspelling itself. The most serious little word in your vocabulary started life as the 1830s version of typing LOL. And by every rule of how language works, that should have been the end of it. Its joke siblings didn't make it. Nobody says KG or OW anymore. Those fads burn bright and vanish within a season or two. OK was on exactly that path, a clever coinage with a short shelf life, already halfway to being forgotten. Then a presidential election saved it by accident. In 1840, President Martin Van Buren was running for re-election, and Van Buren had a nickname, Old Kinderhook, after Kinderhook, the small New York town where he'd been born. And here's the coincidence no one could have planned. Old Kinderhook shortened to OK. His supporters pounced on it, formed OK clubs, and splashed Vote for OK across the whole campaign. Suddenly, a dying joke had a second meaning and a national stage. Van Buren lost the election, but OK won. Because words don't survive on merit, they survive because they happened to be standing in the right place at the right moment. Of course, that's not the story most people have heard. You've probably been told that OK came from President Andrew Jackson, that Jackson was such a poor speller he'd scrawl OK on official documents, thinking that was how you abbreviated all correct. It's a great story, it's also not true, and what actually happened is almost better. It started as an insult. Jackson's political opponents invented the bad speller story to mock him, a little piece of mudslinging meant to paint him as a backwoods fool who couldn't manage basic English. But the smear backfired in the strangest possible way, because every single time someone repeated the job, they repeated the word along with it. The insult was free advertising. And those other origins you may have bumped into over the years, that OK came from a Choctaw word or the Greek olakala, or a brand of army biscuit, or even a Haitian port famous for its rum. Charming, all of them. None survive contact with the paper trail. We only know the real story because a Columbia University linguist, a scholar who studies where words come from, named Alan Walker Reed spent years in the 1960s combing through old newspapers to trace those two letters back to that one Boston morning.
So how does a Boston in-joke turned campaign slogan become a word the entire world uses? It rode the wires. When the telegraph arrived, the dot and dash system that, for the first time in history, let people send messages across the country in minutes, operators needed something short and clear and impossible to mistake, a way to confirm a message had landed safely. Two quick tops did the job. Okay. Railwaymen used it to signal a track was clear and a train could roll. A throwaway joke had quietly turned into infrastructure. From there, it climbed into business, into movies, into software. That little button you click to make a pop-up disappear is the same two letters, still doing the same job they did on the telegraph line, confirming that everything is, well, all correct. From one newsroom in 1839 to billions of confirmations a day across the planet. Which raises the obvious question, if okay is so thoroughly American, why does the whole world say it? The telegraph carried it across the country, and then American films, American business, and American soldiers carried it across the globe. But it stuck for a quietly brilliant reason. It's almost nothing. Two simple sounds that sit comfortably in nearly every language, attached to no deep meaning, capable of offending almost no one. Its blandness was the feature. Most words mean too much to travel that far. Okay barely means anything at all, which is exactly why it could go everywhere. And here's the thing people always asked next. Is it okay or okay? And which came first? The letters did. Okay, spelled out like an ordinary word, came afterward. The abbreviation got so comfortable in the language that it put on a costume and started passing as a word that had been there all along. And that's really what those two letters are, a linguistic fossil, a 19th century joke worn so smooth by 200 years of handling that we forgot it was ever a joke at all. So the next time you top out those two letters without a second thought, the next time you say okay before someone's even finished asking the question, remember what you're actually doing. You're not just confirming something, you're repeating a bored Boston editor's bad pun, a losing president's campaign slogan, and a telegraph operator's shortcut, all at once, in two letters and never hearing the punchline. Thank you for watching. If you've got a favorite abbreviation you actually use today, your own little ol correct, drop it in the comments below, and if it's good, we'll be sure to let you know it's okay. Thanks for joining us for another piece of heirloom history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more of the everyday things you've been doing your whole life without knowing why.